Hello and welcome to How's That Logical? I'm Jason Argento, and Jimmy Dore has done a video that is his take on Cenk Uygur being pro-war. Let's just get into it, okay?
So I just wanted to do this because I found the videotape, so I want to show it. So Aaron and I, as we talked about, they have been the targets of a smear campaign by the Young Turks. And Cenk Uygur even went on the Hill to try to smear me as a Nazi. And he got caught lying. And here it is. Everything he's saying, by the way, he could be saying into a mirror. This is huge projection. Again, if you know anything about Jungian psychology, it's huge projection right here. And we're going to show it to you why we're going to show the facts how it is.
First of all, Jungian psychology projection. Yeah, that totally is something that exists. That doesn't mean that every time you think that someone is wrong, that they're projecting. Just as a thing. It doesn't mean it is always happening.
Your thoughts on the ongoing feud with Jimmy Dore, which I know a lot of our viewers are following very closely. Do you have anything to add to his most recent, I would say, comments on that issue?
Everything he says is over the top, ridiculous. It's lies. His lies about me are endless. He says I'm in favor of bombing Syria. I've never said that. He's a preposterous liar. He's a ridiculous liar. By the way, I caught one.
He's a preposterous liar. I'm a preposterous liar. Well, here we go. Let's just enjoy this video, shall we?
So I'm curious, Jimmy, that you might agree with that.
Okay, so I don't know when this video was taken because I can't find it in its entirety on YouTube. However, if you look at these people, you'll see they're much younger. So once again, Jimmy is looking back way into the past, possibly 10 years, and is using that evidence as support to who people are today. Now, he makes the claim that Cenk is pro-war and that he lied on the Hill, that Cenk lied on the Hill, saying that Jimmy is a preposterous liar, that he ever said he was for bombing Syria. So let's just go from there.
Like that this doesn't accomplish much, and hence what's the point? But does that mean that if it did accomplish more, you'd be in favor of it, or no?
He means bombing Syria. Would I be in favor of bombing Syria if it accomplished a lot?
Is this where you go nuclear?
This is where I show another gear. I don't go nuclear. This is where I actually show another gear. Watch this.
So you're against it under all circumstances?
So under all circumstances, I'm against it because it's just more war and there's no reason to it. Certainly not the reason they're giving us. I have a hard time believing that Barack Obama gives a shit about the civilians in Syria. I really don't think he cares. And because if he did care, if that was really the litmus test of innocent people, why aren't we bombing North Korea? Why aren't we bombing?
Because we can. And isn't that fair? Look, I'm going to take you guys on that, okay? Because so we can't bomb Russia if Russia uses chemical weapons because we don't want to start World War III. You're right, absolutely, right? Okay, but why don't we take the low-lying fruit?
Okay, that's really badly put. Just so you know, I do not believe Cenk Uygur is pro-war. I think he would always prefer not bombing as opposed to bombing. He calls bombing Syria taking the low-lying fruit. It's the problem with video. You're on a show, it was probably live, and now you've said it. Terrible way to put it.
Okay, like send a message wherever we practically can. So
not only is Cenk for bombing Syria, he's for bombing anywhere we practically can.
No, that's not what he said. He's saying that you can't bomb Russia because if they do something, if Russia just decided to use chemical weapons, we have to decide, do we want to start World War III by just bombing Russia? Okay? How we handle Russia is we make, make sanctions on them so that it makes their economics more difficult, so that they have a harder time maybe drilling oil in the Atlantic, or getting certain goods from certain countries. That's how we pretty much handle Russia. What Cenk is saying is, if a little country decides to use chemical weapons, then we're not afraid of going to war with them, so why not bomb them? I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm saying that's what Cenk is saying. He's not saying, hey, why not just bomb anybody we can? Which is what Jimmy said, which is unbelievably not what Cenk is saying. Maybe Cenk is saying it wrong, but if you just listen, you can tell.
North Korea, I'd love to decapitate all the leaders in North Korea.
He'd love to go do a coup in another country. He'd love to decapitate all their leaders. What? Are you?
Again, badly put, Cenk. Horribly put. I mean, it's hard to defend that, and I'm not going to try. I'd love to decapitate all the leaders of North Korea. I'd like to help them become a better country, personally. Yeah, that's pretty awful. But again, the live show, and they're just saying stuff. That's one of the things about speaking. Your brain is trying to process what you mean, and then it has to use your stupid mouth to shoot out sounds so that people understand it. So in Cenk's mind, he may be thinking, boy, it sure would fix North Korea if we could just go and only the bad people were killed. But I don't think he's for taking over countries. I think North Korea is considered one of the countries that's one of the biggest possible problems in the world, next to the United States, obviously.
Talking about?
And set that country free. But we might lose Seoul, South Korea, and millions of people.
Within
we can't
24
do
hours.
it, right? And if we can do it in Syria and help some people, well, okay, that's a good place to start.
Well, the reason why you can't selectively enforce the law is because it breeds disrespect and contempt for the law. So if you're trying to uphold international law selectively, you're doing the exact opposite. You're undermining international law. So if you wanted to really set a line, you would have went after Israel for using phosphorus in Gaza. You would have went after the United States for using phosphorus in Fallujah. If you wanted to, if you cared about international norms, you would have maybe bombed America because we illegally invaded Iraq and a million people were killed, displaced other millions, countless. How many thousands of innocent people were killed in that? That was an illegal war. We lied about it. If nobody kept us in check, somehow we have to still keep other people in check. I said it yesterday, you can't have Tony Soprano giving out parking tickets. It doesn't fucking work.
Yeah, but here's it's totally hypocritical, but then we're paralyzed and can't do anything. And if Tony Soprano is elected sheriff, he's going to hand out parking tickets.
So what Jimmy's saying there, I completely agree with. I am sick of the hypocrisy of America thinking that they're the police of the world and they're really the biggest gangster terrorist. It is a lot like that. Tony Soprano handing out parking tickets. It's actually more like Tony Soprano executing people for breaking the law. It's really what it's more like. that being said, as terrible as the United States is with, other countries that it deems enemies that are low-lying fruit, God, I mean, you can't not. It's so difficult because it's just that not everything's so black and white all the time. Jimmy's very black and white. He's very, hey, look, if we're trying to take oil in Iraq, then we must be needing something in another country, or we wouldn't do anything, or we wouldn't like take action against their crimes, which he has a strong point, because there's a lot of countries in, say, Africa where leaders are enslaving their people and using chemical weapons and murdering people and stuff like that. But we don't do anything because, well, some people might argue because there's no oil to get. So we're like, they're just, why do we, let's not bother with that. However, Syria does have oil. And this is where I think Jimmy's correct. I'm not saying that we don't have good intentions towards trying to police Syria. I'm saying we wouldn't give a crap if they didn't have oil. It's not one or the other. It can be both. I also think bombing is stupid because bombs kill innocent people. I also think that you should never kill innocent people. Bombings really should be close to a last resort. I mean, if you want to go to war, get dirty. Send troops, because war should not be easy from the sky dropping bombs, in my opinion.
And no one's going to respect it. No one's going to pay that ticket. You can't have the mafia giving you a parking ticket. People aren't going to respect that ticket. They're not going to respect the law. That's going to breed more lawlessness. And when we see you selectively enforcing it, you can't have Tony Soprano selectively enforcing the parking laws. You can't have Tony Soprano, the biggest criminal in the town, selectively enforcing parking laws. And so that's why, and so good. I mean, that's my good friend Ben Mankiewicz, and there he is arguing for war. They're all pro-war.
No, they're not. They're not pro-war. And I love Ben. When he's on TYT, I consider him like the voice of reason. He's very logical, very progressive. I just really like Ben a lot. And for Jimmy to say that Ben is pro-war shows his black and white. Everything is black and white, windows all the way up or windows all the way down. There's no spectrum of anything for Jimmy. Jimmy's like, look, he's disagreeing with me there, so therefore he wants to bomb everybody. It's really that extreme sometimes with Jimmy. Don't get me wrong, I love Jimmy. I think he does a lot for the progressive movement. But this is where he's wrong. He often everything's black and white. It's just no.
It's a problem.
Okay, I disagree. I think we could start being consistent.
Yeah,
I think we could stop torturing people in Guantanamo. I think we could stop torturing people in our own prison systems. There's a lot of inhumane shit happening right here that we could fix first. Why do we got to do this? Because that's not what it's about, you guys.
So I'm pushing back against the idea that Ben was forwarding and Cenk is forwarding, that when we bomb, we're bombing because we try to help people. If we wanted to try to help people, we would end our torture program.
This is an argument I hear a lot on the right. They'll say something like, before we start letting immigrants in, why don't we take care of our veterans? We can chew bubblegum and walk at the same time, I hope. Again, why don't we start here instead of do that? There's a lot of departments in the government. We could do both. You can do multiple things, especially with an incredibly rich and powerful country like the United States. We have different departments that do all kinds of things. What the real problem that they're not talking about is that money is what motivates all of our decision making. And I'm going to say all, yeah, mostly 99% of the decision making we make with foreign policy is money. Is it worth going there for the amount of people that will die and the bad PR that whatever administration is in office at the time will get from it? Because you also want to, an administration wants to get reelected, but they also want to make money for their donors. So if they kill too many people that are innocent, they don't want to lose the election, so they stop giving money to their donors, in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. So they have to do this balance, which is the problem is money. It's money, money, money. It's always money is the problem.
We would close Guantanamo. We would end our criminal justice, that racist criminal justice system. We're the largest penal colony in the world. We could start right here if we wanted to help people. They're not bombing because they want to help people. That's the point. They're not bombing to help people. They're bombing to do imperialism and to steal natural resources for corporations, like they always have.
Yep. I completely agree with that. That's exactly what they do. Now, that being said, other than like sometimes where you just overthrow a country because you feel like it, like Iraq, it helps if the country needs to be policed and you want their oil. So it, again, can be both. It doesn't have to always be one or the other, Jimmy. It can be both. I'm not saying we should do it for that reason. I also don't think that it's a good idea to bomb a country simply because their leader used chemical weapons. I don't think that's a good choice, honestly. I would say the right thing to do would be find the harder solution and do that. I don't know what it is. Maybe, I don't know, communicate with them. Stop having such a terrible record like the United States has of overthrowing governments and be a country that the world trusts. That would be a great start. That's, if we started right now, we might be able to do that in 500 years. I don't know how bad our reputation is. It's pretty bad. But the people, the civilians in Syria certainly don't go, oh, good, the Americans are here to bomb us. That's not a way to help anybody. Military targets, I mean, it's about money. It's all about money. If you get money out of the government, where people are getting rich because of policies that we make, foreign policies and domestic policies, then those wars won't seem as valuable to whatever administration's in. That's why Bernie Sanders didn't win, because he's against all war, and he'll always try to do something else besides bomb people. And of course, the industrial military complex wants money, and they pay our politicians money so they get elected, and then the politicians make policy and decisions based on giving big corporations and rich people money. So it's like this disgusting money cycle of murder, get money, get elected, make policies, make decisions, murder, destruction, money. That's what it is. And so therefore, the only thing you can really do in this country to help everything is to take money out of politics. Make the people that are politicians not become multi-millionaires simply because they're a politician. They shouldn't become multimillionaires because they're a politician. If they want to write a book later or a movie or make some kind of product that does really well, has nothing to do with them being in office. However, too many politicians go in, make a bunch of changes, do a bunch of favors, and then come out and get really, really high-end jobs or donations or speaking fees. And they do this because that's their payment for doing all the things that they wanted, that the rich and corporations wanted them to do while they were in office. Money's the problem.
If you
Well,
guys
then
keep
what do you
pretending,
think it's
you
about?
think this is about chemical weapons?
No, but what
That's
is it
so
about?
ridiculous.
What
I
is
don't
it
know
about?
what it's about. I have to speculate because the government is lying. A lot of people said, well, this is a sent because of Iran. We have to send a message because Iran might try something, or North Korea. We have to send a message. And I'm like, so this isn't about this. So now we have to kill other innocent people to send the message that you're not supposed to kill innocent people in a worse way. It's just so backwards. I can't believe that I have to argue this point.
I think you're right on the second half, which is that it's crazy that we have to kill innocent people to send the message that we shouldn't kill innocent people. And I think that that's it. I don't know what the message is, and I don't think there's some here. I don't see it. No one's presented it to me. You haven't presented it here either, which you even said you don't know. But, I don't get why it would be except for the reasons. I just think those reasons, and so do you, those reasons aren't strong enough. I think that when we live in a world where 100,000 civilians are killed in Syria, right, or 100,000 killed in Syria, many of them combatants, but many of them civilians, right? Most, almost certainly not. And then for 2 years that goes on, and we live in a world where Wolf Blitzer gets to ask on CNN, why don't you think anybody cares about Syria? I'm like, well, you don't talk about it. Nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about it. Nobody showed us those bodies. Then we get a moment where chemical weapons are used, and we see the bodies, and we have this reaction. Inconsistent as it may be, people reacted differently to that because they saw it, and all of a sudden there was intense coverage of Syria.
Which is the reason why independent media is so important. Ben is way correct as usual. It's the same reason why Black Lives Matter was formed. If you think that cops were being abusive to black people recently, then you're crazy. We just now everybody has a camera now, so we see it. For decades, black people have been saying, hey, these police are being really abusive to us unfairly, and so then it's the police against the black person's word, and people believe the police. Now with all the video cameras, we see a different side. We have all these we're cataloging it. We understand that that's what's happening. It's the same way with Syria. With all this independent media going on, the big, huge corporation media like CNN and Fox and MSNBC and so on, they can't monopolize the information anymore. There's people like Aaron Matei, who is reporting on Syria and all the things that are going on there. So yeah, Ben is correct there for sure.
My hunch is if we'd had that kind of coverage, if we'd seen 400 dead babies on month 3 killed by a missile strike or executed in a room, then maybe there would have been a movement to attack then.
So why don't we don't go to the international court? We don't have we don't prosecute them. This is a crime. So why don't we prosecute them? Why don't we put out a warrant for his arrest, Assad's arrest? Why don't we do it like that, like the rest of the world does against Dick Cheney and George Bush, because they're war criminals. That's why they can't travel internationally. Why don't we do it that way?
So let me build off of Ben's point. So Jimmy, if you're saying we've been hypocritical in the past,
in the current, right now we're hypocritical.
In the very, very recent past,
right? Currently,
yeah, I agree
Monday.
with you.
Right? Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Of course, I agree with you. Right? That's not the sensible position. That's the correct position. It's a matter based on facts. Okay, you're right about that. But by the same point that Ben was making during the civil rights movement, we could have said, I mean, you're telling me that the country that has, enslaved these people, that has oppressed them, that has segregated them, that has done all this stuff, now you're going to trust them to do civil rights? Well, you got to start somewhere. Yes, You're right. We were a giant hypocrite and we were terrible, etc. And part of the reason, look, this is goofy because I just saw the Butler and it had this scene in it, but JFK in that movie says, I didn't know this was my country, because and to put the movie aside, a lot of people saw that kind of vicious racism for the first time vicious. I mean, they've seen other forms of racism throughout, right? But in the North, the West, etc., they're like, oh my God, look at what they're doing to those people. That's the first time they saw it on tape. So it changed them. So is it possible this is the same, where we actually see the dead kids and it changes opinion a little bit? Plus, this is the beginning to fixing our hypocrisy?
First of all, no one thinks this is going to solve the problem. No one thinks this is going to stop him from using chemical weapons again. Yet we're still going to do it.
I think some people think that. I think that if we punish him harshly enough for using it, could dissuade him from using it in the future.
How many innocent people do you have to kill to make that?
I don't know what number.
No. John's not saying if you kill enough innocent people, then Syria will think twice about using chemical weapons. I don't think Syria cares about innocent people either. I don't think people in power generally think that. I don't think they really care. I think they want the optics of caring so that there isn't a revolution. Like if Joe Biden came on the air and said, I want to tell everybody that I really don't give a shit about regular people in other countries, and if it means the death of a lot of people to make me richer, or the people that and help the people that donated to my campaign and give me money, then I don't really give a fuck. If he said that, there'd be a revolution. So he would want the optics of course I care and I want peace on earth, but the only way to do that is to bomb people. So yeah, Jimmy's right. But John isn't saying you have to kill innocent people to stop chemical war. That's not what he's saying. He's saying that a country doesn't, the leaders of a country don't want to be economically devastated. So if you start bombing things that start making their economy go down, then they are going to become poorer and poorer as individuals, and you will hurt them in the only place they really know, which is their wallet. That's a weird thing to throw out. Again, remember, we're looking at a video from like 10 or more years ago, I think. I mean, I'm just looking at these people and they're ridiculously young. And they're talking about I think Obama was president during this time, because I think at some point they mentioned that. So I wish I knew when it was. I'm going to find out though.
But if we don't do it,
I don't know. Well, how could you be advocating killing innocent people if you don't have a number for how many we have to kill? What?
No, you're just taking his word. He said, I don't know. You're in the middle of a conversation. Sometimes you say stupid shit. John does not think you should that you have to kill innocent people to and you know that. That's the thing. You know, John, there's no freaking way that he's like, if you kill a lot of innocent people, then that will help the situation with chemical warfare. What? You don't actually believe that. I don't believe Jimmy believes that. I think he's making an argument and using John's quick words as a weapon, because nope.
He's advocating this. But do you see the argument that's going on? Do you see I'm the only one against all of them and I have to push back? That's the way it was all the time over there. That's the way it was with Russiagate. That's the way it was with the Mueller. That's the way it was with all their garbage.
Because politics is way more complicated than yes and no. Look, I love consistency. I just do. Do I think that Russia should be held accountable just as much as Syria? And do I think Syria should be held accountable just as much as the United States? Yes, I do. However, that's not realistic. It's just not realistic. The United States is not a good country. We don't do good things in the world. What I'm pretty sure Cenk and John are saying is it's good when the United States accidentally does something good. And Jimmy's saying, I want to start a revolution where everybody's treated fairly, no matter how rich they are or what country they are. I am all for that, but it's incredibly naive to think you can just do that. I also think it's important that he's saying it because people need to be aware of it so that we can gradually change. And it will be past my lifetime before that change happens, and if it ever does.
So they're in lockstep with the mainstream media.
They're in
the panelists.
lockstep.
They are not in lockstep with the mainstream media. This is where you lose me, Jimmy. Stop saying that. They're not at all in the same. They're not. That's like, I don't know. This is where I start to wonder if Jimmy's either crazy or lying. He knows the Young Turks are not in lockstep with the mainstream media. Again, it's black and white. It's black and white. If do a video on something TYT's correct about. Are they always wrong? Are they always so wrong that they must be evil? They're MSNBC, just another version of it. Why is it always that? I have watched TYT. I hear them talk about not going to war and that the reason why we're going to war is probably because of money and calling Hillary Clinton a war hawk. And so, no. Sometimes people disagree and people can be wrong and people can have ideas that are not realistic, and people can have ideas that are realistic. But just because he disagreed with you in this video 10 years ago does not mean that Cenk Uygur is pro-war and pro-bombing Syria. It's just not correct. You can't go back in time and say, therefore, the person's always that way. You can get a general idea of how someone's character is by the past and use that as something to be careful of for the future. But when they over and over prove to you that they are no longer that way, eventually you have to go, okay, this person's not that person anymore.
Lockstep with the MSNBC.
It'll be pretty high. So if you do it really,
okay, go ahead. You talked just a few minutes ago about the alleged and probable use of white phosphorus weapons in Israel earlier this year. Now, Israel says they did not use it in its weaponized form. It has both weaponized and non-weaponized forms. It can be used just to screen troop movements and things like that. We even use it for that purpose. So if we don't punish Assad for using chemical weapons, doesn't that send a message to Israel in the future? That even you, like they did get
come on, John. I was with you until you said that.
No, I'm not saying it's
Israel's
not just
like, oh, what if the U.S. bombs us for using chemical weapons?
No, I'm not saying we're threatening to bomb them, but I'm saying that it's not just, we're going to talk about the red line. I totally understand that.
Do you see how you have to bread yourself in pretzels if you want to call yourself a progressive and be pro-war and imperialism? Do you see how you have to bet? You see that even they have to call each other out on their bullshit?
Yeah, that's called a conversation. That's what that is. Unfortunately, it's videotaped, so you can go back and pick out little things and go, see, this means that they're everything. See this little spot? Everything. No. John is pacifist as far as I'm concerned. I mean, everything I ever hear him say is anti-war. His point is, do you think that Syria would, if you don't bomb Syria for using chemical weapons, does that send a message to Israel that they're allowed to use chemical weapons? I understand his point. His point is, if they did it and there's no consequences, then we can too. I'm not sure why Cenk is just like, I was with you until then. I think it's because Israel knows no matter what, we would never just bomb Israel. I think that's probably what the point is. However, maybe I just don't know enough about Israel and Syria to understand exactly what John is saying. But I would say that if there's a country that's more equal to Syria that might be thinking about using chemical weapons, that if you bomb them, which again, I'm not for bombing, but if you did, it might cause the other country to go, well, screw the chemical weapons. We're not dealing with that because they'll bomb us. Of course, that's possible. I mean, just look at just look at what happened with Gaddafi and the fact that we said, "Hey, if you give up your nuclear weapons, you'll be okay with us," and then we created a situation where he was beheaded and killed in the streets. Now, flash forward to North Korea. And North Korea's were like, "Hey, get rid of your nuclear weapons," and they're like, "I saw what you did to Gaddafi. We're not getting rid of our nuclear weapons." So yes, doing something to somebody can make another party think, "Oh boy, I don't want to be them, so I better not do what they did." That can happen. Happens all the time.
Chemical weapons are banned internationally. It's not just because Obama said something 2 years ago that all of a sudden we developed some sort of opposition to chemical weapons.
Yeah.
They're banned, and that ban is supposed to mean something. And just because the rest of the world won't step up and actually say these weapons should continue to be banned and a threat should go behind that ban, does that mean that just because the rest of the world won't do anything, we shouldn't stand up?
Okay.
When that's
Oh, by the way, I didn't know this at the time, but America was still making cluster bombs, which are considered a war crime. So we were making cluster.
Yes, the United States does a lot of war crimes, 100%, because they're Tony Soprano. Tony Soprano does a lot of awful things. Yeah, it's wrong. It's bad. But who's going to stop us? It's terrible. I would like us to be stopped. I'd like us to be stopped internally. I wish we would do it. I don't really want the rest of the world to destroy us because we suck. What I would like is if we decide to become a better country by, I don't know, getting money out of politics and electing somebody that gives a shit. That'd be a great step. We haven't done it in like forever.
Cluster bombs up until just a few years ago, right in the Northeast. I think it was in Connecticut. I'm not sure. Don't quote me. But we were making cluster bombs. Okay.
necessary?
Yes.
Listen, on that point, I agree 100% with John. Now, Jimmy,
No, hold on.
No, Steve, hold on. Let me address the panel. Okay, Jimmy, I got to ask you this. Okay, so is there any red line for you? So if we don't bomb them, right? And Assad goes, great, there's a green light, man. So hold on. So he thinks, okay, well, they're not going to do anything. And he's right, we're not going to do anything, right? So he says, okay, well, if I got free reign and these guys have been a pain in my ass for 2.5 years, that's it. I'm going to unleash sarin gas on all of them, okay? So last time I killed 1,400, this time I'm going to kill 140,000 with chemical weapons, and nobody's going to do a goddamn thing about it. So what's your take on that? One, that won't happen. Two, that's not on us. These are legitimate positions, right? But I'm curious what your take on it is. And is there any line where you would say, all right, let's come on, we got to do something?
Well, this idea that the answer to a war crime is more war is what I'm rejecting. So I don't think you saying, is there any, can Assad do anything so horrible that you would okay some missile strikes? Isn't there another way to handle a war crime? Aren't you supposed to go to an international court?
So
don't you go to the UN? Wait. Don't you go to the UN and you try to get the UN? But you try to rally the world, don't you? Aren't there nonviolent ways to deal with this first? Or you just immediately, even before the UN has this reported, you just go ahead and we got to bomb these guys. So this rush to war is so ridiculous because I don't think that's why they're going in, Cenk. And if you think they're going in for chemicals, I'll have to respect that. But I don't think that that's why they're going in.
Okay.
I don't know why you would respect that, because if Cenk thinks that we go to war because we give a shit, human beings are selfish. We don't just go and bomb people to help people. I really don't believe we do that. We generally need some kind of give. We need something to have from bombing. I don't think we've ever just spent a lot of money on bombs just to well, honestly, if you spend a lot of money on bombs, you are actually increasing our economy, because the military industrial complex is getting richer every time we blow up things, and then they have to make more and then sell them to us. So that's true. But I think that the American government would like to also go in and go into a place and go to war with someone that has things that we can have too, like resources, like oil.
So listen, I do think they're going in for chemical weapons because they have no interest in Syria. They let that war fester, and
We're occupying a third of Syria right now. What are we occupying? The oil and their wheat fields.
Yeah. I don't know what he's talking about there. Jake, you're crazy. Maybe they didn't know it then. Maybe it is again. Let's see. He talked about 2 years ago, Obama saying, so we're going to go with possibly 2010, 2011 is this video that Jimmy is looking at. So is it possible nobody knew that there was oil in Syria then? I'm going to have to look into that. But yeah, that's weird that he said that. It's a hard one to defend there, buddy.
And we're not letting them rebuild. We're sanctioning them. We have a big interest in Syria. Why? Because Israel's interested in Syria, and Qatar's interested in Syria, and Saudi Arabia's interested in Syria. That's why.
100,000 people die for 2.5 years because there's no oil in Syria, and they don't give a damn about Syria, and that's what we've been saying here all this time, and that's what you've agreed to and a lot of progressives have agreed to. Now, all of a sudden, what changed the equation? The chemical weapons changed.
Whoa. There's no oil in Syria? Did they not know about oil in Syria back then? Or I should say, did the public not know? Because what the government knows is a lot different than what the public knows. The government could have known they had oil, and the public doesn't know until 10 years later. I don't know. I'm pretty sure there's oil in Syria, but I'm gonna have to look that up.
The equation.
If the evidence on chemical weapons comes back overwhelmingly yes, but the Security Council says no, the Congress says yes, you say no.
I'm torn on that. Here I am, back to torn on that issue if it came down to that. But that's a perfectly legitimate argument to make.
25 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, pre-George Bush, we didn't question Bill Clinton's motives for Kosovo.
We should have.
We didn't question it we didn't question it anywhere where we sent
have.
humanitarian aid to. And now all of a sudden we doubt everything. We think there's some ulterior motive. I don't. I think it's this. I don't think. But then I swing back to Jimmy's point. Is I think the motive is pure. But if I would, who I want to agree with more than anybody is John's point. Except I need somebody who's incredibly smart to say, "Oh, this will work. This will have some." If it has no effect, then you're just
that's a big problem.
Then you're just a 12-year-old teenager who's killing the kid who had nicer sneakers. Then it's just about respect, and it's silly and a giant waste of time.
I know General Westmoreland said after 9/11 he went over to the Pentagon.
Well, I'm sorry,
and the guy told him, "Hey, guess what? We're going to go into Iraq. What did Iraq have to do with this?" He goes, "I don't know, nothing." A couple weeks later, he went back. He goes, "You're not going to believe this. We're going to go into Syria. We get Lebanon. They're going into they got a whole plan to reshape the Middle East." This is right after 9/11. They had plans to go into Syria.
Jimmy,
so I'm just saying, don't think that people
Jimmy
haven't wanted to do this for a long time. And I'm not saying that's exactly what this is, but this isn't chemical weapons.
So a couple of things on that. And I want to go on to what Obama said. It was generally Wesley Clark.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I said Westmoreland.
Yeah, that's okay. It's the same, it starts the same exactly.
Yes.
And Wes Clark is right about that, and we all know, but that was the neocon plan, and they wrote it out even before they came into the Obama administration. But I don't think that's what's. I'm sorry, before the Bush administration. I don't think that's what's playing out here, because if you want to go to Syria next, you had 2.5 years to make that case.
You know, I'm surprised Ben would say he thinks that bombing Syria can come from a pure place where it's just about chemical weapons. That makes me want to rethink everything. Because I do really respect Ben's opinion on a lot of things, pretty much everything he's ever said. And so when he says something that I'm just like, huh? I start to wonder, am I thinking something wrong? But I don't know. Maybe I'm just jaded, but America kind of blows. We kind of do things that are awful all the time. and almost always for personal or country gain.
They never even made the case. It's not like the neocons don't know how to do propaganda. You press that button and a wall of propaganda hits the American people. They didn't press the button. I don't know why Israel flipped on it, but they did. So is that part of our decision making? Have you been paying attention to American politics? Of course it's part.
There was a cut there. I don't know what was cut out. Maybe it was important. I mean, there's been a lot of just talking. I don't know why someone would just suddenly cut unless that's weird. Maybe it was an original cut. Who knows? But somebody cut something there.
Of our decision making. But I don't view that as nefarious. I view that as like, I don't know, like if you're Israel, Assad is never going to harm you. And so the fact that they're now saying we should attack Assad, I don't think that's a bad thing.
All right. Well, let's hear Jimmy's closing remarks.
Okay. So now here's that tape we were talking about. And this is why we're going into Syria, and it has nothing to do with chemical weapons. Believe me, America doesn't give a shit that someone's using chemical weapons. Here we go.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me. And one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They've just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, he said, I just got this down from upstairs," meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
That's insane.
And that's why. Because the establishment, the military-industrial complex, they want it. They wanted to go in, and they wanted to overthrow Assad for a long time.
So, Jimmy, as usual, has some really, really great points. I do not think that proves that Cenk is pro-war. I don't think it proves that TYT is in lockstep with the mainstream media. I think all it proves is during that conversation, a bunch of progressives who do not like war have different ideas on how possible it is to simply never bomb anybody ever again. I'm with you, Jimmy. We should never bomb anybody ever again. Is that going to happen? No. Will there sometimes be good reasons with bad reasons underlying? Yes. I guess we can be grateful that America, other than Iraq that I know of, doesn't do anything and also state this is for a bad reason, like a supervillain. We're more of a supervillain that pretends to be a superhero. It's kind of what the United States is. It's Lex Luthor pretending to be Superman. Anyway, Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please like, share, and subscribe. And take care of each other. Thanks. Bye-bye.